More question from Scene here. Scene asks, would love to hear you all talk about Ivan Toney and the potential for him to be in England's World Cup squad alongside Tammy Abraham and Harry Kane. I'm throwing that at you, Liam.
Yeah, he's had an excellent start to the season, hasn't he? And he seems to do a lot of the little things, the less glamorous things that focal point number 9s increasingly don't do. I mean, the last one at Chelsea that really fit that pattern was Olivier Giroud. But he's also got the goals, and if he can carry on scoring at the rate at which he started the season, maybe he's on a little bit of a hot streak, but if he can get to at least 15 goals and really facilitate a very successful Brentford attack, he's got a strong case, I think, because he's that kind of striker is a player that you can build a winning team around, because they just make players around them better. They link up with midfield runners, create space for others. They can win the ball in the air. So whether you're playing sort of a high-level possession approach against lesser teams, they can maybe offer you a different way through there. But if you're on the back foot against elite teams, don't ask me to define elite teams, which England have been in the latter stages of previous tournaments, he can offer maybe a more effective outball and release valve, and he's also mobile enough to chase the ball if you don't plonk it straight onto his head or chest. So yeah, I think he's got a good case to at least argue for inclusion. But there are some pretty strong contenders. I think Tammy Abraham's really blossomed and rounded out his game in Italy.
Well,
and Harry Kane started brilliantly.
I was going to ask you about Tammy Abraham because Gareth Southgate was in Italy recently watching the games. I know that he saw Roma lose 4-0 to Udinese, which probably isn't going to help Tammy Abraham's claim, but then it's not necessarily his fault. Do you think there's a chance that, because one would think that Tammy Abraham goes to Roma and plays every week, scores lots of goals in Serie A, that's surely going to help his chances of playing for England. Ivan Toney does that in the Premier League every week, where like many England fans watch that league as opposed to Serie A. Do you think it hurts Tammy Abraham's chances at all that he's doing it in Italy? It certainly shouldn't, but do you think it might do?
Well, there's an argument as to whether it hurt Fikayo Tomori's chances last season that he was playing so well in Serie A rather than in the Premier League. I think if you asked Southgate, he would deny that and say, look, I am making the effort to go to Italy. Even when I'm not going to Italy, I am watching these guys and keeping an eye on them. But as long as you have more cases like Tomori not getting in the squad, you have the sense.
And he's amazing, right?
Well, he's just had a career year, you know, and been the most regular outfield starter on a title team. So I think that will be the perception until Southgate actively changes it. But my theory with the way Southgate picks his squads is more that he just favours guys who've been in his system for a while, or like been in the orbit of the squad for a while, and he tends to be quite conservative in that sense. So if you've been out of the loop for a little while, it can be quite difficult for you to get back in. But Abraham, that could be a counterbalance with him versus Toney, because Toney has been completely outside the England stratosphere for most of his career. He's a real late bloomer in that sense, whereas Abraham was capped. I think Southgate gave him his first England cap. I think that's right, before a lot of people would have. So he's clearly a big believer in his talent. I think if he sees him scoring a lot of goals in a major European league, and if Abraham can maybe build on that with European performances as well. Roma in Europe this year?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yes. Yeah, so yes. Well, they won the Conference League last year, didn't they? So they must be.
Of course they did.
Yeah, so they must be. Yeah. So yeah, if he can build on that on the European stage as well, and maybe Roma make a good Europa League run, that can help him.
Okay, what do you think, John?
I think Tammy Abraham is one of the top 10 strikers in the world. So that's my position on Abraham. With Ivan Toney, I think, as Liam says, he's clearly on a hot streak right now, and I think that probably affects people's view of what he is good and isn't good at.
Are you sort of saying different stratospheres?
Between Abraham and Toney, I think so. No, I rate Ivan Toney, but I think that were he not scoring as many goals, and I know that's a hypothetical, most people will say, well, he is. Yeah. But, he's scoring at a rate right now that he won't maintain for the rest of the season.
I mean, if Calvert-Lewin was fit, would this even be a conversation?
I mean, I can't even remember the last time I watched Calvert-Lewin play. It feels like a long time ago, doesn't it?
I just remember him in the first half of that first season under Carlo Ancelotti when he was amazing.
Yeah, no, of course.
The other thing to add to this as well is that probably the biggest issue that Toney would have when you're projecting forward to the World Cup is there just isn't a lot of time for someone who hasn't been in Southgate's thinking up to this point to break into that squad. You've got one international break between now and then, and if you're not picked for that squad, realistically, it's over.
Unless there's like a big injury, I guess. Is
that this? Are they picking the squad this week?
Yeah, it's international break next week, isn't it?
Okay, so we will know presumably soon after people are listening to this.
Yeah, and even if those matches don't matter massively in and of themselves, they'll be very valuable indicators for where Southgate's leaning, I think, for the tournament.
Okay.
If you like this video, please consider subscribing to the channel. The Athletic is home to some of the world's best sports journalists, including David Ornstein, Daniel Taylor, Ollie Kay, Amy Lawrence and Rafa Honigstein. There are journalists dedicated to each Premier League team, so every fan gets the coverage they deserve, not just the big clubs. And you can try it for free now for 30 days. See the link in the description.